Actually, we're not going to call this meeting to order because we have to take a vote to adjourn last month's meeting because we lost members of the board before the final person addressed the board. So at the time the meeting was finished, I didn't have a quorum. So before we can start this month's, we got to finish last month. So
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
okay, on the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned from last month. Welcome to November. And we'll open up this meeting. Commissioner Notarianni, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the
Oh, no. This is the one thing we distributed. This is separate. Okay. Chris, do you have this? I printed.
Yeah, I think,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, call the meeting to order. I trust everybody had an opportunity. I know, we were a little delayed in getting the meeting minutes out, but, and there were 12 pages of them. So I trust everybody had an opportunity to go through them all, and if you have, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes without the reading.
So moved.
Do I have a second
Second.
on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The meeting minutes from our October meeting are approved. So anybody from the public wish to address the board on the agenda items? Joan Hodowanitz?
C'est moi, Joan Hodowanitz, Scranton. I noticed in looking at the backup, the warden's report, that the warden is looking towards acquiring, I believe it's OneDrive. It's digital library access. And I think anything that encourages or facilitates literacy within the prison population, I think you should give very strong consideration. It can't hurt. I support it.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Anybody else on agenda items? Okay, if not, we'll move to a motion to approve the current payables for the Community Corrections Center and the prison. They were distributed previously. I trust everybody's had an opportunity to review them. And if you have, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Motion.
And a second
Second.
on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The current payables for the Community Corrections Center and the prison are approved. Mr. DeBilio, you're next. Can we have your report, please?
Yes, Your Honor. The Controller's Office reviewed the prison inmate and canteen account reconciliations, which were prepared by the Prison Business Office for the month of October 2022, and found no discrepancies between the reconciliations and the bank statements. The balance in the inmate account was $459,976.33 as of October 31st, 2022. The balance in the canteen checking account was $283,119.56 as of October 31st of 2022. And in addition, as of October 31st, the canteen account owned one certificate of deposit valued at $15,000, which will mature December 3rd, 2022, and 2 Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust accounts with 120-day term investments valued at $600,000 even and $132,382.32, which will mature January 26th of 2023 for an investment total of $747,382.32. Sorry. Sorry about that. During the month of October, $103,321.04 was paid from the canteen account for the benefit, welfare, and education of county inmates, and the itemized details of those expenditures are attached for your approval. And finally, I want to mention that our current plan has been to move the final certificate of deposit, the $15,000, into the Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust and have that be invested until January 26th, at which time all of the Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust money will be able to be invested into a new term, and that will generate more interest than we're making right now.
Thank you, Mr. DeBilly. So I think you said that the CD, the final CD matures on December 3rd.
Yes.
So that predates our December meeting.
Yes.
So are you asking for action on the part of the board?
Basically, yes. We've already kind of taken action, Your Honor,
Okay.
about it. So I'm not sure if another vote might be needed, but the vote that we did take was to take all of our CD money and put it with Pliget, the
Okay.
Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust. The last piece of that action is for the CD expiring on December 3rd, and we would have that, we would notify the prison to notify the bank that we won't renew that CD.
Okay.
Invest it for a higher rate of interest, and then in our December meeting or January meeting, we'll talk about what to do with roughly the $760,000 of money that can go into a new term with Pliget.
There's nothing for us to do in terms of executing that next move. That's already,
Yeah, we'll just take care of this last 15,000. We'll talk again in January for the upcoming period.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Having said that, do I hear a motion to approve the controller's report?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. DeBilio. You mentioned to me that you wanted to or do that later.
I'll do it at the end.
Okay, all right, that's fine, okay. So now we'll go to the next item is the Community Corrections Center report. Mr. McConaughey?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the house arrest report for the month of October. Adult house arrest had 137 participants, juvenile had 22. Programs revenues, house arrest had $40,767.10. Juvenile had $3,580 for a total of $44,347.10. Year-to-date totals on both is $569,205.90. Programs expenses was $68,313.44. Programs completions was 30. Programs violations was 11. Outstanding warrants, 1 for work release, 2 for house arrest. And the budget overall, overtime was at 56%, expenses at 76%, and revenues at 86%. That's the end of my report.
Any questions for Mr. McConaughey? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve his report. Motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
on the question? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. McConaughey.
Have a good holiday, everyone.
Too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have the warden's report. Warden Betty?
Good afternoon, members of the board. The average daily population for October 2022 is 771 inmates, 579 were county. For the month, we averaged 668 adult males, 5 juvenile males, and 99 adult females. And the average daily population of U.S. Marshal detainees was 195. Our overtime and out-of-county boarding reports are attached. Staffing update, currently our correctional officer numbers break down to 166 full-time on shift, 5 out on workers' comp, 3 on continuous FMLA, 52 with intermittent FMLA, 5 officers on administrative leave, 1 full-time vacancy for a total of 180 full-time officers. The budget, as of October 31st, revenue was at 81%, expenses were at 84%. Extraordinary occurrence reports, there were 5 since the last prison board meeting. On 10/7, the prison responded to a phoned-in bomb threat from an individual who was claiming to have been illegally held in custody for 5 years. All information that we were able to gather was forwarded to the county detectives. On 10/13, an incarcerated female assaulted 2 female correctional officers by striking both victims repeatedly in the head. All information has been forwarded to the county detectives. The assault took place during a medication pass, and it appears to have been spontaneous and unprovoked. As a result of her actions, she was placed in the emergency restraint chair for the safety of all. On 10/25, 2 females were engaged in a fight. Responding officers were unable to get them to stop and had to use OC spray to gain control of the situation. On 10/26, a female inmate attempted to assault an officer by trying to kick the officer. She then began to threaten to spit on officers who were attempting to handcuff her. After a brief struggle and several attempts to spit on staff, responding officers were able to gain control of the inmate, put a spit hood on her, and place her in the emergency restraint chair. On 10/29, an officer was completing his rounds and discovered a male inmate who was attempting to hang himself. Staff were able to remove the bed sheet from around his neck and ensured that the individual was alive and breathing. There were 2 PREA investigations completed in the month of October. One was an allegation of inmate-on-inmate sexual harassment, and it was deemed unfounded. And the other was an allegation of inmate-on-inmate sexual contact. It was also deemed unfounded. Digital library, the administration of the prison has been working with Overdrive, the leading digital reading platform for libraries and schools worldwide. Overdrive has presented us with a plan to provide books, publications, and magazines via our tablets. And we're looking to use funds from the canteen account to prepay for this service so that we can then offer them for free to the inmate population via their tablets. With this said, I'm hopeful that the prison board will make a motion and approve the use of funds from the canteen account to pay for the proposed digital library. The expected annual cost will be approximately $8,750 per year. That's $8,700.
8,700?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It is understood that if the board votes in favor of this plan, that the next step is to seek the authorization from the Board of Commissioners, since a contract with Overdrive would have to be entered into. And this concludes my report.
So you say books,
Magazines and publications.
okay, what kind of publications? Does that include like newspapers?
You know, I didn't get a good long look at that list. It was kind of extensive, and I didn't notice any of the magazines or publications. I looked at a couple. It was just a sample set. They would have us go through, and we'd be able to pretty much handpick. But I don't know if, say, Newsweek or Time Magazine specifically are offered. I believe that they are, but I don't want to say that they are without being able to say for sure.
All right. I'm curious about newspapers in particular, in case, you know, if they have access to the local paper.
I asked that question in the past, and sorry, Boris, but I was told the local newspaper wasn't a possibility. Sorry.
You're going to have to get syndicated, Boris, that's all. It's, how about the breadth of book selection?
There was quite a selection. Again, I didn't go through and really study it all that closely, but there was a good variety of genres to go through. Fiction, nonfiction, some things I never heard of, some I heard of.
Okay.
Warden, this is going through the tablet.
Yeah,
Oh, this is access through the tablets.
yeah.
All these things are accessed through the tablets, correct?
Yes, they are, Sheriff.
Warden, I know we don't have enough tablets for inmates, but do they share the tablets? How does that work if, to access the amount of tablets we have for the amount of inmates?
We are now at a one-for-one status. There are enough tablets for each individual, each inmate. The only ones that aren't being provided with access are those that are in restrictive housing.
Do you have an idea where the database is for digital library? Do they have access, say, for instance, to the Lackawanna County Library? Do you know?
That is something that we're going to be discussing with, we're going to reach out to the library system, the local Lackawanna County Library System.
Okay.
We haven't done that yet.
That would be nice if they could.
Yes.
Anybody else have?
I just like an update on our two female officers on how they are that were assaulted.
One has not returned to work as of yet. The other one came back within a few days, and she seems to be doing fine. The one who has not returned to work as of yet, I don't know what her status is at this point in time, other than she hasn't been back to work. And this happened, what was it, October, middle of October? Yeah. Yeah, October 13th. So I don't have an update on her. I haven't had communication with her.
Anybody else have any questions for the warden?
I do.
Okay.
Briefly, I was just wondering, the money that you took from the canteen, I think we talked about that. You were going to add content to the tablets. And it's free for everybody, right? The content.
That's our hope, is to be able to use canteen account funding to purchase or lease these books so that the inmate population would be able to access it free. Yes, Commissioner.
And then somebody complained somewhere along the line and about only we allow books to be sent via Amazon only, right?
No, there are several different companies that could send them in, but it's from a manufacturer, a book company like Amazon. I don't know the names of the other book companies,
Okay.
but we do allow that.
We do allow because it's security, right? It comes straight from the.
Yes.
Okay. And then I was wondering if you, do you remember back in 2016 when Tom Early had done some sort of evaluation of the prison?
Yes.
I haven't looked at it in a while, and I mentioned beforehand, but I didn't get time because we had a commissioners meeting this morning and I got busy, but doesn't matter. Do you recall, evaluate like staffing? Like, do you think it would be helpful for us? I mean, you agreed last time that eliminating the mental health isn't ideal in light of the huge population, but you need more correction officers. Do you think it would, the reason I was asking about Tom Early's report is either Tom Early or somebody else, do you think it would be beneficial if we have somebody do a staffing analysis?
Yeah, I mean, I do one every year, but I'm more than welcome to have an independent source also do one. I could share what I have with that individual or individuals, or they can just completely go independent of it. But by law, I have to do one every year.
And I missed it. How many people are on I don't know where everything's a mess here. How many people are currently on FMLA?
3 on continuous FMLA,
And what about intermittent?
52.
Do you think, does that contribute to your manpower issue, do you think?
It definitely contributes to overtime. The overtime issue is directly affected by that.
Okay. And I heard on the radio, I don't know how I ended up on the channel, but Jubilee Services is now coming to,
Yes, they have been for several months.
they were saying nice things on the radio about Lackawanna County and that they're going into the prison.
Oh.
And I was just wondering if you had a plan with regard, as we talked last time, in support of your desire to eliminate the mental health positions in the event that we aren't able to give you the COs and keep those positions. You had indicated at the last time that you had a conversation with Outreach, but I did send an email, but it was late, so I did give Judge Gibbons a copy of the emails from Outreach. I just wanted to know, I wasn't familiar, to be honest with you, what they did and didn't provide. And they indicated that they don't provide mental health services ever. But you indicated that you had spoken to them about providing such services. So
What I was asking for, and I misspoke, if you want to say misspoke at the last meeting, I frequently interchange the words therapy, programming, and classes. I apologize to everybody if I caused confusion by that. I was looking for an expansion of classes, whether or not we had any elimination of any positions. I wanted to reopen programming at the facility. I was asking Outreach if they had any classes that could be geared towards mental health classes, I guess. I probably said the word therapy, because again, I apologize to
I don't think
everyone.
you did. You didn't say,
okay.
you just said my plan was, and I've already had preliminary discussions with Outreach to ask them to assist us with mental health counselors in the evening, providing programming and services.
Okay.
So do you have any idea, in the event that we determine that you do need additional COs, and, you know, whether what you requested is eliminated, or we eliminate maybe one or not at all? Do you have an alternative plan for mental health?
I can jump in if you don't mind. I mean, since last meeting, I attended some meetings with the warden, with Advocacy Alliance and the Friendship House, had communications and discussions with Attorney Frank Bollock at the Recovery Bank, and what's the name of the place up at Lake Scranton? It is Lakeside. And received very positive feedback with respect to them, and they're in the process of putting together proposals for mental health, substance abuse counseling, and recovery and reintegration. So I don't think we've received anything just yet, and I don't mean to step on your toes. And just
No,
My understanding was that the Recovery Bank, I think this is great, has certified recovery specialists coming in. They're going to go into the prison 5 days a week to provide a 12-step
I don't know what their schedule is, but
recovery-based meetings for men and women.
in my discussions with Frank Bollock, that's their proposal. Tim, I think they made a specific. Have they made a specific proposal to you?
yes, and
Okay.
Commissioner Dominic is hitting the nail on the head there.
Okay.
I think that's fantastic. I would
And
love
DATS is going to go back in.
Yeah.
But we still have to get specific to mental health.
That's the purpose behind the discussions with the Advocacy Alliance and the Friendship House. We sat down with Jim Martin, and they're putting together a proposal for us. Mental health, programming, supervision.
Oh, and then, Chris, you had sent, or Commissioner Shermack had given us a document indicating that there's certain services that aren't being provided. Do you remember we had a conference call with a couple WellPath people were in the room with us, but then we had somebody on the screen? Do you remember that? Because they weren't providing a nurse or something. And it is a countrywide issue with staffing, and we basically told them, well, you entered into a contract, so while it is, either that or we're going to, potentially sue for breach of contract. Do you remember that?
I think it was about a year ago.
Yeah, and then they kind of got better, but I don't know where they went from there. And then I remember a separate conversation with you about $90,000. So my question is, do they owe us money, and did you get it? And are they providing the services they're supposed to the T? And if not, maybe you should get with the solicitor about sending out a letter about potential breach of contract.
Well, we've already made a motion to approve independent audit, So, I was going to recommend that we contact Baker Tilly, the local company that can do that. So, that's where we stand with that. That would open everybody's eyes to what we're getting, what we should be getting, what we're not getting. So I was
I
waiting
can't
on
tell the board that the last bill I got, we owe them money now.
Okay. Do you remember the $90,000?
I don't remember the amount, but I remember it was a significant amount.
Did we get it?
Yeah, they did, I forget the term
adjustment
they
or
used.
something?
Like a justification, yeah. They do that quarterly. And the latest one is we owe them 70-some.
Do you believe that the medical treatment with WellPath or the medical treatment at the prison with WellPath has improved since prior?
Since they took over?
I'm sorry?
Since they took over?
I'm sorry, can't
Is that since they took over? Is that what you're trying to? Okay.
My best judge of that is grievances that I see. And although, the two things,
There's always going to be
the
grievances.
inmate population loves to
Yeah.
grieve the food and the medical. They love to. And then we come in third, staff. It's medical, it's food, it's staff. It doesn't seem like the same type of grievance that I'm seeing about WellPath that I saw in the past. But I'm seeing them, but I'm not qualified to make a real call on that medical aspect of it because I don't have the medical ground. All I can say is, here's what I'm hearing. Here's what I'm forwarding to the folks at WellPath to address or to provide me with an answer. And it just doesn't seem like it's the same level as it was previous. I don't
I think
have
it's
numbers.
improved from before.
Yeah,
But I know what you're
yeah.
saying. But I do agree with Commissioner Shermack that if they're not, they have to give us exactly what they promised us. And like we had that conversation, I understand it's hard to find nurses, then you shouldn't have promised that you were going to provide nurses. But maybe we can do something internally as opposed to have to spend the money and do it externally. I don't know. We were able to, at that point, internally determine what they weren't providing. So that might be something the board may want to consider. And also, I'm asking, we don't have to make a motion on it today, but maybe the board would consider, although you are, as you indicated, you're in dire need of COs. Do you ever think of eliminating the part-time positions? And that's still probably monetarily wouldn't really give you many?
Right now, I don't have any part-timers. It's been a while. It's hard.
No, I mean the vacancies.
It's really not any change in money. If I'm not having part-timers working there, we're not spending any money. There might be money in a line item, for instance. I don't think it was a whole heck of a lot for the course of the year, but we haven't been hitting that very hard because of the lack of part-timers. So it had no real big effect on the prison's budget or the county's budget.
Does the board, anyone on the board have any comment about having somebody go in and doing a staffing analysis?
Well,
Not saying that it's anything against the warden.
My recollection is that there was a motion in April. I wasn't here in April, but there was a motion that was approved to get an audit done.
That is of WellPath. I'm talking
Yeah.
for the staffing at the prison. And it's no insult to the warden, it's just that it's a lot of moving parts. So, we're at a point where he's saying he needs COs, but we also need medical or mental health treatment. So maybe I don't remember if, you probably remember if Tom really addressed that in his report. I don't.
Not without reading it. It was a while ago that I read it.
Yeah,
so
it's been a while for me.
But
But I mean,
think-
either him or somebody else just going in and working with the warden and seeing if there's anything we can do to try to have it more efficient, I guess.
Well, my hope is, at this point, with the people that we've met with in the past months, and particularly with somebody like Jim Martin, where we can get a better idea from him just what we need and what we don't need with respect to mental health. And he seems to believe that he can give us a pretty good estimation of that.
Was the behavioral health unit, and this is my last question, promise, beneficial
Yes.
Okay. So I think you testified at the last
That
time.
was your last question, you said.
I know, I'm sorry, I'm a lawyer, you know that. We
And
always
I'm
say
a
it's the last
judge. You
question.
made the last question.
Judges usually remind us of that.
Let's move on.
But I'm just saying, because you indicated at the last meeting that you agree that we do, like, if in an ideal world, you'd like to get your COs, but keep the mental health.
Yes.
So it was working well.
Yes.
Okay, so should we consider that, Judge, having somebody go in, or what do you?
That's your third question.
Should we consider having, should we rule on it, or should we discuss it and talk about it next month? What do you want to,
Well,
about having
I-
somebody go in and looking at the staffing in terms of COs?
I think it's, until we get a better idea of what the budget that you're going to pass
Right, but
provides for, then I think, I don't
But
have.
he's asking that certain things be eliminated because he needs other things. So if we figure
Well,
out
he
whether,
said that because he was told that if he wanted to get
needs one or the other.
7 officers, he had to give something up, so.
right, so I'm
that's-
saying if we have somebody look to see if maybe there's a way to make it run more efficient so that maybe he doesn't need 5 COs. Maybe he does. Maybe he needs only 2. Maybe he doesn't need any. Maybe he needs 10. But at least then we have a more, I mean, how can we make an informed decision if we don't, and I certainly don't know anything about staffing a prison.
Well, there's one person here in the room who has a lot of experience in
I
staffing. a
understand that.
prison,
I'm
and
just
I
saying, if we want to bring in an audit for
Well, you're talking about an audit?
Path, then why wouldn't we have somebody like Tom Early or somebody else do what he did in 2016? I mean, I don't see why it would be an issue.
His analysis in 2016 was very far-reaching. It had,
I'm using that as an example.
Yeah.
I'm saying for the limited purpose, like an efficiency investigation or whatever you would call it.
Well,
I don't think there's any question that we need more staff on both sides. The question
Yeah,
comes
no, I
into,
don't-
is the funding.
right.
And that's the bottom line. Yeah, we could use more COs, and yeah, we could use more.
Right, so I'm
mental health.
saying maybe somebody smarter than us in terms of staffing a correctional facility, county correctional facility, might be able to offer, an opinion in conjunction with the warden.
Well, I think if you, unless you're there, I don't know how someone could have a better idea of the staffing requirements than the warden and the staff there. That's the part that doesn't. I'm not opposed to it, but it would be just spending more money to tell us that we already have a problem.
Well, I was thinking that it maybe would offer a solution, but I guess we could talk about it.
Well,
Yes?
I'll do this. I usually see Tom early every morning, so I'll have an informal conversation with him to see if that's something that he feels that he could be of assistance for.
Yeah, I don't know if
Does-
he's qualified to do so, or if we'd have to get somebody else. Brian Jeffers was raising his hand like a student back there.
You have to go to the bathroom?
Number one, you're not gonna get a staff analysis done before this year's budget, all right?
Well, yeah, that's true.
Plan for this in 23. Number two, Tom Rose analysis was paid out of the canteen.
Okay. Thanks,
So we
Mr.
could
Jeffers.
potentially use canteen funds for it.
I don't know. You'll have to talk to the solicitor. Because he was doing an overall analysis of the entire prison operation. This is just a staff analysis.
Okay.
I don't have any problem having an informal conversation with them and seeing if that's something that he feels is in his wheelhouse, and if not, if he can give me an idea, and then, we can pursue it there. I'm not opposed to it, but like Commissioner Notarianni says, it's a question of dollars and cents as well. So I'll ask everybody else on the board to give it some thought and give us your feedback. See what you think. Okay? Any other questions for the warden?
may I?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm just looking at this document I'm reading was provided by WellPath regarding the understaffing hours. This is very disturbing to me, and I'm sure it would be to the board as a whole. We contracted, for example, they broke it down. Again, this was not verified by the county. Director of nursing, they were contracted 1,960 hours. They were provided not even 1,300. Medical director, 1,176. They provided 1,000. Psychiatric, registered nurse, they are so, we're not getting the bang for the buck here, Warden. I don't know what we could do to, I know understaffing is prevalent everywhere, but percentage understaffed, 34%, 15%, 53, 60, 21.
And Sheriff, if I may, that's an unhealthy level, because what happens is you have to supplement what you're missing with the people you have working at overtime. So they're putting in more hours and making more money, costing us more money, because they're getting paid time and a half, those that are there. So you have a very valid point. You have a more, I don't want to say burned out staff member, but a staff member who's put in more than their 40 hours a week. They have to be they don't have
I
to be, but
understand
they're
that.
getting paid more, and it's costing us
My
more.
concern is how much under contract we are with this company.
Well, that was the reason for the audit. To
That's a
find out.
problem. What can we do to rectify this problem? I know it's a rhetorical question, but for the board, what could we do? I don't know if anybody else has this, but
Well, I think any action, any formal action that has to be taken by the board should be based on the results of an audit. So I think we'll get the audit done and take a look at it, and then we'll see just exactly where everything sits, and then we can make our decision based on that.
And lastly, Sheriff, I know that they're actively trying to add to their staff. I was there yesterday with Lieutenant Gene Ruddy, and he read to me off the internet all the positions that they're currently looking for. So I think they're having a hard time getting more staff on board, but they're trying, from what I understand.
I agree.
Okay. Anything else for the warden? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve his report.
Motion.
Second?
Quick question.
Another question.
The digital library, Warden, overdrive for the books, publications, and magazines, the tablets have currently books and magazines, I believe. Are we looking to add in addition?
Yes, yes, and you're right, the tablets do, it's a limited number, but this would significantly expand what would be available.
Okay. Because I'd like to make a motion, if we can, to spend this $8,700.50 per year to add books, publications, and magazines to the tablets, Your Honor. I'm not sure if we should do it right now before we're through with the warden or not, but out of canteen funds,
Okay.
because it would benefit the inmates.
Now, my only question about that is, I've asked the warden to look into a couple of other things with these tablets, like access to our county library system, other types of just what periodicals and magazines are available. And if that changes the price, then I think any motion dollar specific would limit that. So
Okay, then we can wait.
I think if we can we get that information by next month's meeting?
I'm hoping so.
Okay.
Yeah, because again, we're going to reach out to the county system and see what
Yeah.
can be provided via those tablets, if anything.
Okay.
I just don't know.
Okay.
Fine.
Very good. But I'm with you on it. I think it's a good idea, and I think,
And maybe until we get some mental health, when the judge indicated he's in the process of speaking to different people or different agencies, we can get some resources online on the tablets in term behavioral health or.
Yeah, Commissioner, at the very least, something to do helps out with mental health. The fact that you have a book to read or something like that helps. Obviously, if there's any kind of self-help books, which there are, we can load up on that as much as
But
possible.
the fact that you guys are going to have a 12-step program, that's like amazing. That's great to hear. I'll sleep better knowing that. Thank you.
okay, so we're in the process of approving. I think I had a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Judge, before we continue, in respect to the board's time constraints and in fairness to everyone in the audience that would like to speak, I'd like to make a motion that we limit public comment to 3 minutes per person.
Maybe 5, 3's a little. What do we do at our meetings, 5?
3's fine. 3 is what we do.
No, we do 5, don't we? Brian, do we do 5 or 3?
5?
Want to adjust your motion to 5?
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second. We just
On the
adjusted his
question?
motion to 5.
He adjusted it to 5.
You adjust your motion to 5? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I'll second it.
Okay. On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. And I will tell you that I have a hearing at 2 o'clock this afternoon, so. So, we did have a request from the Pennsylvania Prison Society.
You're limiting me to 5 minutes. You can cut me off at whatever point you want. My name is Holly O'Connor. I am, you need my address, Post Office Box 114, Fleetville, Pennsylvania. I'm here in my capacity as an official visitor for Pennsylvania Prison Society, and for those who don't know me, I have been going into the prison for the last 7 years. I've been going into the prison for the last 5 years. With the warden's permission, we are allowed access to all areas of the prison, and we go in on a regular basis. That in mind, if I can tail on what the warden said initially, I saw a number of extraordinary incidences relative to women. I would just note that right now, the population in there is exceedingly high. We too have noticed some issues there. Personality in those blocks can change very rapidly. And I would just say, right now, the women are all confined to 2 blocks. They may want to consider expanding them out to 3 blocks just to kind of spread them out. It's very tight in there right now. So as to the books, as to Overdrive, a couple things you need to know. Those are one-on-one loan outs. It works just like your normal library. The public library does have the system and could easily issue library cards to all of the inmates. The problem comes down to what you still have to download the system or the individual books to the tablet. And then right now, a large portion of the classic collection is on the tablets, but the inmates are having to pay for it. So that runs into a situation where I have indigent clients who can't access books right now. We have outside books going in. I will tell you the most effective use for the books right now, from my standpoint, is the people who really need them are the people who are sitting in Delta. My special handling violent or my special handling, they have done, I've been sending in books personally, and I think it's done a significant amount to keep them out of restraint chair. They kind of work as miniature escape pods for those guys in terms of it gives them something to do other than get themselves in trouble in there. So I think the books are extraordinarily important. We would certainly back the warden's request for the digital. I don't care what form they go in, okay? I just want you to know what you're getting. My understanding is $3,000 in books gets you about 100 books. And when I say that, that's a one-on-one loan out. The extra money is probably for the process of running them off the tablet because you still have to pay the tablet. So that's relative to books. On another loan of books, you have my list. The second list relative to administration, I basically provided that for you just so you would know what kind of issues are currently streaming relative to the things that we're bringing to the administration's attention. I have no problem with getting those answered from administration, but I wanted you to be aware of them, okay? Relative to the issues that you need to address. I can only speak to the cognitive therapy program. I will tell you that the inmates are telling me it's working. They tell me it helps them. And I think a lot of that, quite frankly, has to do with the individual, the personality of the individual who is running that program, which would be Lindsay Cochran, okay? The glitch with the program currently is that program is not allowed to issue books, at least under current policy. I would like to see that policy changed, and I would like to see One of the things we want to see is some of the monies that are coming into commissary being turned over to actually go towards inmate programming. So relative to books, I would like to see some kind of monies put aside. I have no idea what she would need, okay, relative to buying books for those inmates who are in her program. And I can give you two examples. I have a gentleman who is sitting in an SHV cell. She ended up giving him a cost, one of the books she gave him was on Holocaust survivor. Another gentleman I had was having severe issues with sleeping, couldn't sleep, didn't want to take medication. She went down, she talked to him, she gave him meditation materials to learn how to meditate. So I think it's a highly individualized program, what she's doing. I think what she's doing is useful. And I think that, and I can't think of anything more important than mental health services as being programming for the inmates, okay? So I would look to have some kind of, one, the policy, and two, some kind of approval for that particular program to be able to take a book as opposed to photocopying out 1,500 pages and having my counselor spending time behind a photocopy machine instead of doing actual counseling. Okay, so that's that issue. Relative to other issues, we'll pass on the TV and the rec, although I will say that we have very limited space. The guys do need to work off steam. And one of the things we have noticed is that in some of the state facilities, one of the things they've picked up is WeFit. So they have WeFit machines. It's not something you have to worry about equipment, and the men can actually do anything, I presume, from bowl to whatever dancing during their rec time, which I think would be a good thing. Someone told me Huntington actually has PS5 machines, and they line them up in front of screens and actually allow them to play PS5. From a behavioral standpoint, you know, that's a great reward, but whether or not you want to do something like that, I don't know.
Thank you.
Medical you have? You want to cut me off? You may.
Well, it's 5 minutes. It's a little bit beyond
All right,
five.
that's
I don't
fine.
like to cut you off. I just,
It's all right.
time's up.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Joan?
Yeah, Joan Hodawanitz. A couple months ago, you passed a motion to do an independent audit annually of the canteen fund. Do you know when you're going to do the first audit?
Not yet, Joan, that I'm aware of.
Hey, I'm watching you. I'm watching
Yeah,
you.
no problem. We should probably
What happened with that?
vote on something like that, right? Did we vote on that?
Well, I think we did.
You
or
weren't
was a-
there.
Yeah, I wasn't there yet.
No.
I think some of these,
You
we
did.
discussed these audits, WellPath and the canteen fund every year. I think the next course of action would be to get proposals from professionals that would do that. And then when we have something in writing, so we know exactly who's doing what and what it costs, then we can vote on that formally at a meeting. So I know that some of the board members and their council have had discussions with different entities. I think once we reduce that to writing, we'll have something in hand so we know what we're voting on.
Okay.
So periodically, I'll be asking that question. My only other question is, with regard to the gentleman that attempted suicide at prison, was he then referred to some medical facility for a mental health assessment and follow-on care? Ward Beatty?
No, he would have been seen by our mental health people in the facility.
Okay.
Both WellPath and
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Holly Van Wert. I'm a Lackawanna County resident. That's very close. And the lead organizer of NEPA Stands Up. I'm here once again to discuss with you the reality of the torture occurring in our community. As you are well aware, over the summer, NEPA Stands Up collected nearly 14,000 signatures from Lackawanna County voters to limit the use of solitary confinement in the prison. Now it is nearly winter. We just had our first substantial snowfall, and people inside Lackawanna County Prison are still facing long-term isolation, spending upwards of 23 hours inside a cell with no meaningful contact. While the county's decision to keep our referendum off the November ballot is an ongoing legal issue that we are continuing to navigate, this board has the power to implement our referendum in full as prison policy. During the August Board of Elections meeting, Commissioners Dominic and Notoriani supported the changes that we outlined in our referendum and encouraged us to bring them here to this board. We have been attending these meetings for months now, yet nothing has been achieved in limiting the use of solitary confinement, despite being told that you would take it under advisement. We are asking that Lackawanna County Prison limits the use of solitary confinement and all of its synonyms to no more than 20 hours per day, and for emergency short-term solitary confinement to last no more than 24 hours. By Warden Betty's own estimation, at least 22% of those incarcerated in Lackawanna County are kept in some type of restricted housing. Solitary confinement is a practice that is happening in our community, and we, along with nearly 14,000 Lackawanna County voters and those currently facing these conditions inside, need to see this practice significantly curtailed. I would like to know where our proposed changes stand with the board today and how we can begin to move forward and make these necessary and life-saving changes.
Well,
I took a visit to the prison twice since our last meeting, and I'm going to, give an update on, what I found. I gained a lot of information over almost 6 hours over there, spending time with Lieutenant Gene Ruddy, who was a tremendous amount of, information, and Colleen Orzel, the deputy warden. And I spent one of my 2 visits with the Prison Society representative, Holly O'Connor. They can really talk more about the actual solitary confinement situation better than I can, but I'm going to address my opinion on it as soon as we're through with public comments.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
anybody else?
Reverend Doug Posgate, a retired clergy. About a year ago, I was before this board and have been before you a number of times, questioning whether there's a possibility of hiring a certified trained chaplain in addition to volunteers who currently do what they do. Last meeting, I requested that perhaps there would be a response because last year there seemed to be no one saying we shouldn't have a certified chaplain on staff. Now, funding is always going to be an issue or concern, and I know budget is right around the corner, but I'm asking that if there's some specific reasons why we shouldn't have chaplain that's certified and very much practiced on staff, are there reasons that we shouldn't?
I don't know that there's any reasons that we shouldn't. I didn't realize that the last time during last month's meeting, but I was told by the warden after that one of the people from Jubilee was in the certification process during that time. Has he, two people, have they completed it?
I believe that they completed all three.
3. And they're certified?
Yes.
Okay.
Are they
See the certification yet, but
are they state certified? Is it?
they would sound, I believe, to Elizabeth Town with the Department of Corrections.
Okay. Well, specifically with that, Jubilee is a Christian organization funded and basically giving that perspective to the inmates. And at a recent Jubilee Lackawanna County Prison Chaplain newsletter, I took note of any reference to any other faith besides Christianity. It isn't there. I spent 35 years preaching the gospel in a Christian tradition. I don't know what percentage of your population come from different traditions, but there are those. And the emphasis from Jubilee, my understanding is, it is a Christian-oriented organization and pursues that agenda inside. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think volunteers are wonderful. But I do know that about 2 months ago, I went to a celebration of life for a former chaplain at the county prison. His name was Paul Gear. Paul, according to this article, was the shepherd of the fastest growing congregation. That would be at the prison. And I would like, if I could share this article with the commissioners, yourself, Judge, and perhaps the district attorney, so that you get some perception of what the breadth of what this individual would do.
Absolutely.
If I may, I'd be appreciative to have that happen. And would like to come before you again next month and see if there's any additional thoughts. Budget is always an issue, but, you know, I'm hearing that canteen and commissary funds are being used for other things. Perhaps the county couldn't afford to take the full freight of hiring a full-time chaplain. There might be other sources to help that to happen. May I pass these?
Please.
When we
Thank
create
you,
an
and thank you
employment
for giving-
position, it creates.
Sorry?
With an employment position, it creates some other issues in regards to being a county employee, the salary board, the union contract, liability, things like that. So
Require
it
it.
becomes a little more complicated than just saying this is a good thing and we're willing to pay for it.
Okay, but pursuing that is different than not pursuing.
Watch your step there.
I knew Paul Gear on a personal basis and a wonderful individual. Anybody here remember Reverend Gear?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you all. Appreciate your comments. Any members have some business
I do.
you
Your
said you
Honor.
wanted to address?
As I said earlier, I had 2 extended visits to the prison since our last meeting, and I gained a lot of information over nearly 6 hours being there. I made some notes so I don't forget anything, but I want to thank Lieutenant Gene Ruddy for taking the time to explain pretty much the entire operation of the prison. I've gained valuable amount of information and knowledge from him. And I also want to thank Holly O'Connor from the Prison Society, who accompanied me on my first visit, and all of the staff that I spoke to, including Deputy Warden Colleen Orzel, behavioral counselors, including Lindsay Cochran, correctional officers and inmates I spoke to in the restrictive housing area, and an inmate who gave me an extensive demonstration of the computer tablets that are making a huge difference for inmates at the prison, giving them access to videos, certain videos, and phone calls, and music, and books, I think is a tremendous help. And as they say, an idle mind can lead to trouble. So we have a lot of tablets, and I understand that we can use some more, so that tablets that are down in use, we can make sure that everyone has one available at all times. I have to say I'm impressed with how our county prison operates. I was impressed with the way our prison personnel do their jobs. They do it in a professional manner, and they do it with the concern for our inmates, and inmates are treated humanely. There is a lot going on there. It's not a country club, it's a prison, but it is run safely, professionally, and with compassion. There should be no cause for concern by prison advocates. In my opinion, the average stay in the restrictive housing area is 1 to 2 weeks, and that is including a hearing that is provided every inmate upon arriving in the restrictive area. Mental health is obviously an issue. We've talked a lot about that today. For many inmates, we can use more behavioral specialists and counselors. We can use, in my opinion, and the opinion of Lieutenant Ruddy, a couple of padded cells. I don't think we have any padded cells right now. And we do have inmates that attempt to hurt themselves in cells, and I think having a couple of padded cells would be something that we can use for inmate safety. We can use more correctional officers, as we've talked about today, to cut down on the mandatory double 16-hour shifts, which is a strain on staff. And there's a lot more of that going on than we hear about. Additional training is recommended for our officers. WellPath has had staffing issues, which we talked about, and they are now improving, according to Deputy Warden Orzel, and they're currently looking for nurses and an on-site doctor as we speak. Is the prison perfectly run? No. There's always room for improvement, and that's for sure. But the public should know that they have a well-run prison and no one is treated inhumanely. I want to thank the employees of the prison for their good work and ask them to keep that up moving forward. And if I may, I know the solitary confinement issue has been raised over the last several meetings. I was wondering if it would be okay with the board and okay with the warden if I would ask Lieutenant Gene Ruddy, who's with us today in the audience, if he could possibly come to the podium for just a couple of minutes to address his opinion on solitary confinement. Would that be okay?
The referendum was argued, but there hasn't been a decision.
I just don't know if there's a pending legal matter. I don't think we should get into the, well, Boris, I'm just giving my legal advice. We don't talk about pending legal matters.
I think the legal matter is whether or not it should be on the referendum. It's not whether or not the substance, whether or not we should have solitary confinement or not. So
It's strictly about
I
the
don't
ballot.
think him.
No, if it's not about the ballot, I'm just saying, we don't want to touch on litigation. If we want to talk about operations,
Right, but we're
that's up to you.
litigating a referendum,
Okay.
not the substance of the issue. So I think he could speak to it.
Okay.
Maybe.
Are you going to ask him just about the
His-
current situation over
His
there?
opinion on the current situation.
Or just describing the,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fine. I don't know that,
Warden, is that okay with you? Lieutenant Ruddy, would you mind? Yeah, okay. So briefly, Lieutenant Ruddy, solitary confinement is an issue, and I just wanted to know if you can address that situation.
Well, the solitary confinement in our prison system, if you're asking for opinion, I believe it's a necessary entity. It's a necessary entity because there are specific situations where the inmate per se cannot be in housing units alone, or I'm sorry, in housing units with other population and with other inmates. Being violent tendencies, having mental health issues, or having other things that are going on with them personally. They just can't get along with other members of society. And when they commit an egregious act or something else that's going on with them, they have to be confined. We have different classifications in our Delta unit, and within those units and being confined, we realistically have, I'm going to say about 23 inmates that are, if you will, confined alone. And those ones that are confined alone, either because of their restricted housing units status or their disciplinary status.
And some inmates, if I'm wrong, choose to be alone.
Correct. In Delta unit right now, we're housing 54 inmates. Out of those 54 inmates, 30 of those inmates choose to be alone. And why they choose to be alone is because we have the room to be alone. We could afford them that opportunity. Being in a single-man cell, they have their own privacy to use the toilet on their own, to their video visits on their own, to their phone calls, and just have that private time. However, I don't want to confuse that with being segregated or being locked down, because we have the officers that we have working in Delta Unit, and when you did the surprise visit, we were very fortunate. We talked to an officer, John Cadden, and when he was there, he ended up working a double shift, and he was on the morning shift, and when he did, he offered inmates the recreation time. So the inmates did go out for recreation time. However, when they went to tell them their time was up, going to another inmate to offer them more, to offer their recreational slot, they end up saying, I don't want it. They have refused. Officer Cadden then, in conjunction with the supervisors, offered them additional hours out of their cell. So they're being treated with compassion. They're looked at in a different light. They're not looked at that 23 is 23 and you're down. That's not it at all. And it's not how it works in our facility because of the level of compassion that we do have for the inmates because of the officers and being trained this way.
Very good. Really appreciate it, Lieutenant. And
Okay.
I know that you could probably talk a lot more on it, but thanks for that information.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Board.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Billo. Any other members have any other business?
Just very briefly, with some of the concerns Holly O'Connor raised, is it possible to put her on an agenda to address some of those issues or concerns that she didn't have time to get to? I mean, she
Absolutely.
wrote a 12-page articulated email outlining them. I think we could even narrow it from there, but give her time on an agenda next meeting to address some of those issues.
No, absolutely. That's fine. You all right with that? Holly?
She had left.
She left? Okay. No, I'll extend the invitation to her myself. Okay. Anybody else? The only thing I want to add is that my plan is to have next month's meeting at the prison and get back into that quarterly rotation. So under our normal calendar, the December meeting was always out at the prison too. So keep your eye on the notice when it comes out. Okay? And other than that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion is adjourned.